Wait. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks everybody for joining today, our webinar called Surviving a Ransomware Attack, Acronis Backup and Active Protection. We're really excited to present this to you through SoftwareOne, which is a strategic partner for Acronis. I am Rob McElroy. I'm a Strategic Partners Manager here at Acronis, and I work with SoftwareOne closely to onboard MSP partners that SoftwareOne manages, and our message today is to really show you our technology, in particularly how it helps with ransomware attacks. Of course, John McCarrick is going to show you other features as well, but we're very excited to present this to you today, and hopefully you're interested and you will get signed up soon. So I'd like now to introduce you to George Butel. He's a hosting specialist for SoftwareOne, and he'll get things kicked off. George?
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate the intro. Thanks, everybody, for joining today. Really excited to get through this content and hear what John has to say. As you probably know, SoftwareOne is a global partner for the Acronis MSPs. If you're not already signed up, please reach out to me or somebody else on the team, and we can help you with that process. For now, let's kick it off to John. John McCarrick is our Acronis Partner Technology Evangelist. John's a veteran in the cloud service provider space, having worked for Parallels and OpenExchange prior to joining Acronis. John's mission is to create an active community of service providers around the Acronis product line. Expect to visit with John at your favorite trade show or find him on your favorite social media platform. John?
All right. Thank you very much, George. So today we're going to talk about an especially important topic, especially given today's environment security-wise. We're going to talk a lot about ransomware, what's going on with ransomware, how has it gotten to be the situation that it's in, and where are we going with it, and more crucially, how Acronis will actually help you stop it dead in its tracks. We are going to be reviewing some features today that are not yet available on our production systems. They're available for beta usage right at the moment, but we're going to show them within the next month or so on our production systems. But we thought this was such an important topic area that we needed to get you in front of it now and get you started down the path of making sure this is going to work out for your customers and a good thing to have. So our agenda is we're going to just very briefly go over who Acronis is. Not all of you are familiar with us. Then we're going to talk a lot about ransomware. Then we'll talk about our two solutions that we have that will help customers out of this problem. And then very special just for you guys today, we're going to actually show you our product actually stopping WannaCry on a couple of demos that we've got for you. I think that'll be very exciting. So Acronis has been around for a while. We've been in the market for 14 years. About 3 years ago, we made the pivot into the cloud. And so we have a lot of cloud service providers who have joined us. We've got several thousand cloud service provider resellers. We hope you'll join their ranks very shortly. But the reason that our technology is so well accepted in the industry is because of that long history. We've actually gained a lot of technologies that are unique to our product and you won't find elsewhere. We'll talk about a couple of those products, a couple of the features very specifically today, but we've had obviously a lot of attention given to our products, especially around this notion of ransomware. And so one of the features that we're going to talk a lot about today is Acronis Active Protection. And then we also have some other security features like Acronis Notary that we're going to talk about today. We've already started to receive a lot of accolades and awards based on not just this function, but many of the other functions that we have, making it super easy, especially for small to medium-sized businesses up into much larger businesses. But our goal is to make sure it's very easy to keep yourself protected and all of your data protected at all times. So At Acronis, we believe in a hybrid cloud architecture. We know that not just your company, but your customers' companies are storing data in all kinds of places. There is no such thing anymore as just having a server and client relationship with all of your data. There's now data living in many kinds of clouds. There's data that's living both locally and off-premise. So you've got a lot of mobile devices out there. And so we believe that you should have a hybrid cloud architecture. I should note as we jump into this that one of the things that you're going to be hearing from us, and we'll probably have another webinar on this fairly shortly, is that we're going to be adding even more and more features to our cloud platform as time goes by. And so in our farthest most left-hand column here, you're going to see that we're not just a cloud backup company. We have lots and lots of different types of products that we've brought to market. And we hope to bring some of those, not just to SoftwareOne and thus to you to resell, but even within the same platform. So within the platform I'm going to show you today, we hope to bring you some of that same functionality so that literally you just have to make a decision to sell it to your customer. So this is going to be really cool. Also, we believe that you choosing your own deployment strategies is really, really important. And so you can see that SoftwareOne is, again, one of our deployment partners here. We have lots of different ways to deploy. And by that, we mean, where do you keep your software? We have both on-premise versions of our software and cloud versions of our software. All of our cloud versions of our software also enable local storage. All of our local on-premise products also have cloud storage as an option. So lots of cool ways to deal with our product. But probably the biggest story for you right out of the gate is how many different workloads that we support. Our goal is that whatever is in your client's IT infrastructure, we cover it. And let's start at the very bottom of this middle column here. We support mobile devices. That includes Android and iOS devices, whether it's a tablet or a phone. We also support all of the business applications, whether it's SharePoint or Exchange, Active Directory, SQL. And we don't simply mean that we back up the data. Of course, we back up the data. It's image-based backup. We back up everything on the device. But with these 4 applications very specifically, we can actually go in and do granular recovery. If you want to get one email back or one email address back, or you want to pull one SQL database back, you can do that. So very cool functionality. We also support a ton of different virtualization platforms. Most specifically in our cloud product, we support Hyper-V and VMware. And not only do we support them in terms of being able to back up their VMs, we also have the ability to support their host configuration, so if you lose the whole thing. And we also have this really cool feature where we can actually restore any of your disk images as a VM in one of those systems immediately. We call that feature Instant Restore. We also back up physical devices. So a lot of the technology out there that's a backup technology will only back up virtual machines. We also have the ability to back up physical machines. The physical machines include your Windows servers and your Linux servers, and also all your Windows PCs, laptops, all your Macs as well. So we support all your Mac laptops as well too. So regardless of what kind of devices your customers have physically in their hands or out in their mobile workforce, we're already supporting them. Just as importantly, a lot of customers have made the move into the cloud. And there are all kinds of different kinds of clouds. Very specifically, we want to point your attention to Office 365. Many of you are reselling Office 365 to your customers, and they don't have a way to back that up right now. And they really ought to, because if a customer were to delete their own data either intentionally or through sabotage, you need to be able to make sure you have a business continuity plan. This makes a heck of a lot of sense. And we actually sell a lot of Office 365 backup. Also, we have the ability to back up public clouds. So if you have workloads that are living out in Azure or Amazon, we can back those up as well. And because we have this flexibility with all of the different things that we support in terms of the backups, the items that we can back up, when we talk about how we can migrate that data later, because we support all of these different infrastructures already, migrating between different infrastructures is going to be easy for us. I mentioned a minute ago that we also support a lot of different storage configurations. So, you know, obviously this is a cloud storage service. We have the ability to store your backups in the Acronis Cloud, but we have the ability to store those backups in a lot of other places as well, including Azure or Amazon, but also very importantly on local disk. This especially becomes important as we start to talk about user journeys like, hey, I've got Office 365, but my regulations require me to keep my data for 7 years. How can I promise that I can do that? Oh yeah, now I have a local copy. And not only do I have a local copy, because I have granular recovery, I actually can go in and surf through all of that data and treat it as though it were sitting on the server. And then finally, there's any recovery. We want to support the widest range of recovery options. I mentioned a few already. We do granular recovery for files, mailboxes, databases, so that you can get specifically what you want back. And because this is a cloud service, you can do that from anywhere. Literally pick up a tablet or phone, hit the internet address, log in, and you can get back that data. So maybe you left your laptop back at the office. You want to get one file off of it, you can. We also support a bunch of different system recoveries as well. And so whether you want to do a bare metal, where I mentioned our incident restore a minute ago, where you restore it as a VM, all kinds of cool things in terms of getting the systems up. And then finally, I mentioned our migration stories. Because we have the ability to say you have a workload that's living in an Azure VM and you want to bring that back home into your VMware VM, you can. You just simply back it up and you restore it. So all kinds of different migration stories are now possible. So this is what we're bringing to the market. And we're adding to that a whole layer of security protection on top of that. That is the subject of today's talk. So let's talk about ransomware. We all know that it's important. We've seen two very recent, very high-profile attacks. One is WannaCry, the other one is Petya. We'll talk about both. But it is becoming an ever-increasing threat. So what is it? So ransomware is actually a type of malicious software, just like malware. Actually, it is malware. But what it does very specially is it blocks access to the victim's data, and then it threatens to publish or delete until the ransom is paid. And so we want to make sure that we understand what's really at risk here is we're really under a criminal threat here. Somebody has our data. And then a deadline is assigned for payment. When the deadline passes, the ransoms will either double or the files will be destroyed or permanently locked. And the important bit here is that the payment method is going to be generally some sort of electronic payment, typically a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. And so it's a very, very low-risk activity for the criminal because they're going to get their money in an untraceable form. So how does it work? Well, there's several ways that customers can get hit by this. The first is a drive-by download. The system automatically downloads a piece of malware or spyware without the end user's knowledge. Mostly, they come through phishing emails. And you'd think at this point people would stop clicking links in email, but they don't. They include attachments or links to malicious websites, and they're widespread. And they're ubiquitous. We all know how much spam that we're getting every day, and it only takes one person in your organization, unfortunately, to click on it to infect a lot of people. They're also exploiting vulnerabilities into internet accessible systems, and so they're scanning the networks and they're doing probing attacks, and if they can get in there, they'll leave it. And then there's also all kinds of strategic web compromises where they take you to a website, you get that drive-by download on there, but they know who their target is. As a matter of fact, we know that there are certain industries that are more prone to be getting this sort of malware than others. As a matter of fact, for whatever reason, hospitals seem to be a high-profile target these days. Here's an abridged history of ransomware. Ransomware started all the way back in 1989, believe it or not, the first versions, and they were typically out of Russia and Ukraine. And at first, they were literally, you had to have an infected diskette of some sort. As the internet became more popular, we ended up with things like Russian Winlock and so forth. But the problem with a lot of these early ransomware is they did not have a good way to collect the money. There was a lot of risk involved with the collection of the ransom itself, and so we see a lot of scareware out there where people are claiming to be the FBI or the police, and therefore that way they don't think they're going to get reported. And then in 2013 we saw the real explosion. Bitcoin became available as a payment option and allowed people to completely anonymize what they're doing. And then we saw a bunch of different types of improvements into the ransomware capabilities, including the ability to inject into the web, the ability to add humiliation as a feature. And then in 2016, and this is where things got really hot and heavy, we saw something new, and that is Ransomware-as-a-Service. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then finally, now we're starting to see global attacks, where the data that they're using to infect you is actually coming from known breaches into national security apparatus. For instance, the CIA and the NSA, where they're taking caches of carefully curated exploits, and they're starting to use them against their targets. And mostly the people that are getting hit are those who have unpatched systems. Typically, the software providers have been good about getting the patching done, but that's not always necessarily true, and that is where the real danger is, that we're starting to see more and more zero-day attacks with regard to this. Just another sort of breakout on the number of different kinds of new new ransomwares. You can see that there's been an increasing volume, especially over the last couple of years, in the number and types of ransomware that are out there. So how prevalent is the problem? There are literally dozens and dozens of exploits, and there's more coming every single day. To date, still 93% of phishing emails now contain ransomware. Matter of fact, we can see that there's, in terms of malware, the number of malware as a percentage that has ransomware in it continues just to rise and rise. And so we think that, now it's become a true criminal organization. There's almost nobody who is doing phishing schemes that aren't including ransomware. So let's look at some ransomware statistics. First is, how much does it cost when you get hit by ransomware? Well, you can see that 30%, it's a fairly low amount. It's up to $500, and this can be regionally adjusted. As a matter of fact, right within the setup of creating the ransomware, you can actually pick which geographies get which amounts. But you can see that another full 42% are under $5,000. So it's very few that are getting hit with a very large amount, because they know who will and who won't pay. And so their targeting has become very good, which is really scary. And mentioned that the percentages of businesses of certain kinds that are getting hit are also becoming more targeted. And so we can see healthcare is the #1 target, along with financial services, manufacturing, and government. By the way, manufacturing really is mostly about going out and hitting the manufacturing apparatus itself, like this, not the stuff that's in the data center, but the stuff that lives out in the field. So who paid? In the United States, people generally have not paid. Only 3% of folks have paid. But in Canada, it's quite the opposite. 75% of people have paid. And in Europe and the UK, there's more, obviously, that are paying than in the US. Did the organizations lose files by not paying? If you didn't pay, did you lose files? And 82% of them did. Only 18% were able to go and find some sort of rainbow table or some other de-encryption process by which they were eventually able to recover their data. 82% actually ended up losing their data. And I think there's another strong correlation in here that you should be aware of, and that is that when a small business gets hit with ransomware and does not pay and does not get their data back, according to the Small Business Administration, small businesses who lose their data for more than 2 weeks have a 25% likelihood of never opening their business again. And so this is a very real crisis that is going on. And so what's the cost of it? Well, in 2015, there was about $325 million that were paid in ransom. That number jumped up to $1 billion last year, and it's projected to be $5 billion this year. And so we have quite a large problem in front of us. The same set of data also suggested that last year, 1 in 6 businesses were hit by ransomware of some sort. This year, it's more likely that that about 6 out of 6 will be hit. Does that mean everybody's going to get hit? No. It means some businesses are going to get hit 4, 5, 6, 7 times in a single year. And so protecting against it is going to be very important. I mentioned this a minute ago. There is a new threat, and that is Ransomware-as-a-Service, and it is part of the reason why there's such a huge growth in this area. In the traditional ransomware, the attacker had to pay a malware developer a one-time flat fee, or they themselves had to write the ransomware virus, and they bore all the responsibilities as being the attacker who bought this thing. In Ransomware-as-a-Service, they literally go on the dark web, pay their $39 or $49 entry fee into the business, and then within the ransomware, the split between the attacker and the distributor is automatically calculated into the ransomware. And so the ransomware distributor can write much more targeted ransomware, and they can sell it much quicker and easier to people who are just interested in being attackers. And we know there's a ton of script kiddies and spammers out there who are very good at what they do in terms of writing compelling emails and so forth that get people to open things up. And so in that combination, we have created a very deadly environment for our data. And so in the Ransomware-as-a-Service, the writer has created a useful user-friendly portal that the attacker can go into, and they literally can define their own parameters of the attack, which regions, who pays what, and so forth. And it can be used by virtually anybody. You don't have to be a big technical person in order to figure out how to do this. And if one particular variant fails to perform, there's an incentive by the distributor to make it right and fix it. And all of a sudden, we have all the normal business parameters of good customer service come in. And so the current model ensures that the ransomware variant will perform effectively, at least for a little while. And so if they want to keep in business and keep people coming back to them. And so there's a nice, strong split between the businesses. And you'll see that typically the attacker will get about 70%, and the Ransomware-as-a-Service provider will get about 30%. And so everybody is making out on this. So how do you fix it? Well, one of the ways you fix it is with backup. And so clearly that is where we entered the story. And many organizations are only backing up their servers. They're not backing up the endpoints. And so you need to target, the ransomware targets both the servers and the workstations. Some people will say, well, backing up every workstation is not feasible, but it certainly is. But here's the thing, you have to have your endpoints protected as well, because one of the things the ransomware is doing is it's attacking the networks, which will then connect into the servers. So you need to do it. A couple of backup types that to know about. We support all 3 of these models, and that is full backups, incremental backups, and differential backups. And so the thing you have to ask is, how long in time going back do I want to lose my data? How much data can I afford to lose? And so with full backups, you choose, this is the simplest model, you simply choose a full backup on a periodic basis, and it creates a full run of the machines that you have. With the incremental backups, you take one full, and then each incremental only measures the difference between it and the last full or incremental. The differentials do something almost the same, but what they do that's different is they always go back to the last full one. So differential will be the difference between the last full and the current moment, and so you make your next full backup. All three are valid models for different purposes. Generally, you will see people using combinations of these. Matter of fact, one of my favorite ones is to do full, differential, incremental, 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 and then full, so that you get the best of all worlds. Cloud backup. One of the things that we want to make sure that we're clear on is that putting your backups on drives that are in the same network, or for God's sakes, on the same machine is not sufficient. Most ransomware can reach into the backup stored on networks and drives and encrypt files. Now, one of the good news for you is that the active protection feature that we're going to show you here in a moment actually defends itself against those sorts of attacks on your backup files. But it is possible, regardless of who you are, no matter how good we think our technology is, to hit other things in the local network. So keeping a copy isolated and out in the cloud is yet another way to make sure that our customers are having the best possible solutions. So let's give you an example of how backup can help. And this, by the way, this story is an actual story. It was from a car dealership up in the Mississauga area. The white paper on this is on our website under the resources tab, so you can go and read this yourself. But I thought it'd be useful for me to tell you how one of the ways that backup all by itself, without even referring to our active protection product, will help in a ransomware. So in this particular case, at 10:30 in the morning, one of the employees of the car dealership opened a email that had ransomware in it. The IT team was not aware of the strike, and some 12 minutes later, the first report reaches the IT team, and the help desk responds. The IT team disconnected the infected PC from the network at that point. Note, we're only 12 minutes later. 9 minutes after that, or 21 minutes after the original strike, 7 more machines report ransomware on them. And the IT team then realizes what happened and shut down the entire network. They literally start pulling cords everywhere. You know, power cords, network cables, shutting off routers, everything that they can do, and they got everything offline. They came in and turned on one machine at a time, not connected to the network, to find out how many machines they had. And it turned out they had 23 machines infected. They had 23 machines infected in 21 minutes. And so this is clearly a problem. And because these were all hit with ransomware, several $100s each, this was going to be a large ransom payment if they paid it. Now, I should note at this point, paying a ransom is almost never a good idea because you never know whether you're going to get the data back actually. 2, you still have the infection, which means that they can go in and take a second bite of the apple anytime that they want. And 3, and much worse, you're creating a business model for everybody else to be infected by. So it's almost never the worst case, and as you'll see by the end of this presentation, almost unnecessary if you do your work now. So they now know that they have these 23 machines they need the backup. By the way, one of the features that we have of our system is we have the ability to do large-scale backups and recoveries even into our cloud product. We have the ability for you to send your hard drives out to our cloud storage, and we will put them in the cloud for you to make it much easier to get large amounts of data out to the cloud as opposed to just trying to transit. And the same thing when you have an emergency, you need them back now, we can send them back by mail, physical mail to you on an overnight courier to make sure you have your stuff. So at 8:30 the next morning, they received their 23 hard drives, and they started to get the machines fixed. By about 12:30 the next day, they had almost all of their systems up and running, and so they had a total outage of about 1 day and lost none of the data that mattered to them. And so this was a good outcome for the customer. They didn't pay the ransomware, they didn't have the continuing threat of ransom, and they've got all of their devices back. And this is just one way that backup helps with this problem. A couple of things to note is that customers are already moving their data into the cloud. Matter of fact, this from the IDC group says that about 76% of companies either already use the cloud or plan to use the cloud within the coming 2 years. And so only 24% are going to be resistant to the cloud. So definitely moving to the cloud. And the number one service that they're moving to the cloud is data storage and backup and recovery. And so this is a great market to be diving into for you. So let's talk about the product itself. We already talked a little bit about the things that we back up. We want to take some special notes here. First, if your customer has Microsoft in their environment at all, we cover every bit of it. Whether it's a Windows Server or Windows PCs, all of their applications, whether they're using Hyper-V virtualization or they have cloud services out at Azure Office 365, we already cover everything that's in their Microsoft environment. We also likewise cover everything in Amazon and on any Linux server. We're covering the entire Apple group of products through whether they're Macs or iOS devices, covering all the Android devices, and of course all the VMware vSphere stuff. Really, really cool that we back up all this stuff. Much more important when your customer decides to make a migration. So if they want to move from, say, Hyper-V out to Azure, we make it super easy, especially if they're trying to burn down their Azure pre-buy. This is a great way to do that. So some issues and things that we think are really cool for you guys as service providers around the Backup Cloud product. A couple of things we do. First, we solve a data protection challenge. We back up all your customers' data to multiple locations, as we've been talking about. And multiple locations is important when we're talking about ransomware. Whether it's on-premise, on the Acronis Cloud, in your cloud, wherever that data needs to live. We're also reducing the management overhead. We're consolidating operations into a single unified interface. You can manage all of your customers through one interface with our product, and we integrate that into a lot of the existing systems that you already have. We're supporting the widest number of devices, and that means you're expanding your addressable market. For many of you, you don't currently deal with the customers, laptops or mobile phones or tablets, and this gives you a great entry into some of their other data spend that they could be making with you. We think that building your brand is important, and so everything is white labelable. You develop your own pricing. The way the pricing works, we just charge you once a month for your consumption. You charge your customers how you want to charge them. And talking specifically to our Software One folks, they've created a great program for you guys that you can just come in and adopt with very little operational expense. We're integrating with your existing billing and provisioning systems. You can leverage what you already have in place. And we're utilizing Software One's deployment systems to make it super easy for you to onboard your own customers. And then we're trying to make sure that you're exceeding your customers' best SLAs. We're giving you a lightning fast backup service that recovers and backs up twice as fast as our next nearest competitor. And I mentioned the instant restore. One of the things that's cool about that instant restore product is we can have restores in as little as 15 seconds. We also want you to be able to nurture customer trust. So one of the things that we do is we encrypt all the data, whether it's in transit or at rest. We can store that data in our Acronis Cloud data centers. Those are all Tier 4 data centers, and we only use private encryption keys so that only your customers can get to their data. We don't have backdoors. This is a great thing for the customers. We want you to make sure you can leverage your existing investments. So whether you have, you want to use our data centers, your own data centers, the Software One data centers, we allow you to mix and match however you want. We're also going to be able to let you differentiate your backup service from other providers because you can back up so many different things. You can really approach different niches in the market. We also have really low entry barriers to entry with in terms of the sales channels. So we give you a flexible go-to-market strategy, and we put it all on a multi-tier, multi-tenant selling model so that you can do whatever it is that you need to in terms of attracting customers. We also let you spearhead markets maybe you haven't been in before, including Azure and Amazon. And also, we're going to let you start fast and finish first. Literally, you can be started tomorrow. Like, call in, give George a call. We literally can get you up and running. No architecting, no installations, no requirements. All you need is a username and password, and we can start helping you to sell today. A couple of new things in. We continue to update things for, like, if you use ConnectWise, we've got a new ConnectWise feature. We have these really great backup and daily backup and status reports. We've got always working on increased stability and performance, and we're always integrating into all kinds of new things. Some unique things you're not going to find anywhere else. First is powerful multi-tenancy. We give you the ability to manage all your customers from one easy view, whether their data is in the cloud or whether their data is on-premise. We're going to give you a true multi-tier service offering so that you can do all the white labeling and branding and make sure that you're dealing with your customers in an appropriate way. Also, the individual customers can also have additional locations or departments and so forth as is needed for them. We also offer flexible storage options. We've mentioned this a number of times. You can use on-premise, you can use Acronis hosted, you can use third-party hosted, you can do the Software One Cloud, all kinds of stuff. We also offer a lot of powerful cloud automation. So if you have an existing billing system, it's likely that we're already integrating into it. And we give you control over your service. You get to choose whether your customers can do self-service or white glove service. They're doing managed services or self-service. And finally, we're giving you the Acronis Any Data Engine, and that is what allows us to do all this migration work that we've been talking about. In terms of our data centers, they're all safe and efficient. We ensure privacy and data segregation through true multi-tenant services. The data is all stored in Tier 4 design systems with SSAE 16 certified data centers. We deploy to secure private cloud destinations, including optional Acronis storage, your own storage, or third-party storage. We do everything with AES 256 encryption, both in transit and at rest, and always over SSL encrypted channels. And then we leverage the included Acronis storage software for dependable storage if you decide to use your own cloud storage. Our cloud storage data centers are all over the world. You get to choose which ones are appropriate for you. You can see that we have 4 in the United States. Now let's talk about the piece de resistance, and that is Acronis Active Protection. So Acronis Active Protection is an active protection for ransomware and other similar threats. And one of the things that makes it different is that instead of looking at signatures and code snippets that kind of identify previously identified ransomware, we instead look at the behavior of the machine. When we start to see encryption where we don't expect to see encryption, we put in services that stop the encryption, tell you what's happened, and allows you to undo the problem. And so we actively protect the local files and backups from the unauthorized modification. We actively protect the cloud backups from alteration by safeguarding the Acronis agent from attacks. And we instantly recover from the ransomware attacks by detecting the ransomware based on behavioral heuristics, instantly backing up files targeted by ransomware, blocking the attack, and restoring the files. Matter of fact, many customers who have the ransomware on their machine when they have this problem don't have any downtime at all, because we immediately do the restoration. So the result is that the data can never be compromised. And if any files were impacted prior to stopping an attack, they're automatically restored. And we'll show you an example of that in a minute. One of the things that we always want to think about when we're talking about backup is RTO and RPO. So RPO is recovery point objective. That is, how far back in time can I go before I've lost data that I care about? And RTO is, how soon will I be back up and running with my machines and continuing with my business? So with Active Protection, we lose no data. The instant backup saves the most recent data available for recovery. In the case of a ransomware attack, there's no recent data, there's no recent changes to data that are lost. So our RPO comes right down to 0. Now RTO, because we're instantly recovering the files, they're restored immediately. There is no downtime. The customer didn't even realize they had a problem. In the case of downtime, there's no time wasted trying to find and check and recover the files. We've already done it for you. We call this a negative RTO because you didn't even know you had the problem. So how does it work? So the ransomware infects a Windows machine. Acronis Active Protection is working in the background to detect it. The ransomware starts to encrypt the files, and so the instant backup happens immediately. It's likely that several files will be encrypted before we can catch it, because we have to see the behavior. But Acronis Active Protection reacts as soon as possible, and then it does a whitelist and blacklist check. We know that some encryption techniques are required or preferable for certain companies, and we want to be able to whitelist the things that are supposed to be happening. If it's untrusted, we block and terminate the threat, tell the customer went wrong, and then restore the files. And you can see here on the right-hand side here, possible ransomware was detected. A suspicious process is trying to modify your files. Do you trust it? If no, then it asks, hey, these files were already encrypted. Would you like to restore them? So why is Acronis Active Protection unique? Because it uses a unique combination of both backup and proactive security, helping each other with making sure the product works. We also have data recovery for any situation. There's no limitation on the size of the files because we're actually looking at the behavior that's going on. We can say, just change this back to what it was before. Acronis Active Protection contains a unique self-protection feature where the backup files and the backup processes, both in local and in the cloud, are protected so that they cannot go out and get to my backup files inside. It is the thing that gets protected the most. No encryption will be allowed to happen on the agent at all. Acronis Active Protection uses cutting-edge behavior and heuristics. It uses artificial intelligence and deep learning not found in other security solutions. And Active Protection is not just against cyber criminals. It's just another layer of defense for any damage or destruction. There's a lot of other ways that you can accidentally do something you didn't mean to do with your system besides just ransomware. How did we do when it came to recent ransomware attacks? We blocked them all, every single one, and the behavior was different for each one of them. And you can see down there at the bottom is the two most recent ones, WannaCry and Petya, and we were able to protect against both of them. So our test results are, we sent the systems in to be checked and tested against other things, and you can see that we had the best percentage of blocks. The total maximum possible score was 35. We got one for 29 points. And so you can see all of our competitors are much further down the list there than us. And Acronis adds value to any malware solution. So, people say, well, do you need both AV if you've got this thing? The answer is yes, it's part of a total solution. And so depending on what you're doing, this can actually add even more protection. If you're using a free antivirus, we're going to add all kinds of layers to protection that you just wouldn't get otherwise. Also want to talk about Acronis Notary for a second, and then we'll go do our demo. Notary is another layer to our security protection. The idea behind Notary is that we have now gotten to the moment in time where we're really not sure about the data that we have anywhere at any time. We're storing data. We know that there are all kinds of vulnerabilities that are out there in the world, and that people have the ability to get at our data. And unlike ransomware, where we know we have a problem, the biggest challenges for security out there is when we've been infiltrated in some way, but we don't know, where something lies dormant in terms of a backdoor, and that person has constant access to our data. And so one of the things that we've done is we've invested in a technology called blockchain. The feature is called Acronis Notary, and the idea is that we want to be able to notarize that the data that is in a location is the same exact data that we put there in the first place. And so there are lots of important documents that need to be notarized, like agreements, wills, tax returns, and so forth. And if it's important enough to be stored and backed up, it certainly needs to be certified to prove its authenticity, so that when we pull that document out later, that everything is the same as that went in. So how does it work? Well, what we use, blockchain is a distributed database. And so when we make a change to one of the pieces of data in our data repository, we send out a notification to the database that a change is being made. And all the people that are on that distributed database validate that for us. We use the Ethereum database. It's supported by over 120,000 servers. It's the most widely distributed blockchain database that's public. And when that happens, it creates a fingerprint hash on each stored file in the repository. And when we go back to pull that out, we know what the fingerprint was when it went in. And if it is changed in some way, we know that it has been messed with. But if it hasn't, there's no possible mathematical way that any change has been made to that data. And so this is a way that we can take any record and verify that it's not been changed or manipulated in any way. And this is going to be incredibly important as we go forward. And again, just another feature that we include with the product. So let's do a little bit of a demo, shall we? In this demo, we'll show you what I should mention. We are going to do this by way of a little bit of video. Unfortunately, my boss wasn't about to let me set up a system by which I could mess up an entire network worth of machines. So we had to do this in a controlled environment. So normally I would do my demos, live, but this case is a little dangerous to do so, and you'll see why. In this demo, we'll show you what happens when a user receives a ransomware like the notorious WannaCry on a machine that does have the pre-installed Acronis Backup Advanced 12.5 and its active protection turned on. In this demo, we assume that the user is already... I'm sorry, I chose the wrong one. Files get an extent. I chose the wrong one. I don't know how to nip the wrong one. Start with this one. There we go. Better. In this demo, we want to show you what happens when a user receives a ransomware like the notorious WannaCry on a machine without the pre-installed Acronis Backup Advanced 12.5. One of the most common ways to get ransomware is by email. In this example, the user opens an email that's offering the tempting inside information about the fantasy drama television series Game of Thrones. He clicks on the link provided in the email and downloads the zip archive. As soon as the infected file is extracted and opened, the ransomware immediately starts encrypting all the files available on the computer. In the case of WannaCry, the infected files get the extension WNCRY and cannot be opened or restored manually. Eventually, the user gets a sinister, threatening message as a desktop wallpaper and a pop-up window displaying the ransom payment condition. All right, so now let's take a look at what happens the other way around. Of WNCRY. In this demo, we'll show you what happens when a user receives a ransomware like the notorious WannaCry on a machine that does have the pre-installed Acronis Backup Advanced 12.5 and its active protection turned on. In this demo, we assume that the user has already installed the backup agent on his Windows machine and created an active protection plan in the backup management console. The user again opens an email offering tempting insider information about the fantasy drama television series Game of Thrones. He then clicks on the link provided in the email and downloads a zip archive. As soon as the infected file is extracted and opened, the ransomware immediately starts encrypting all the files available on the computer. In the case of the WannaCry, the infected files get an extension of WNCRY and cannot be opened or restored manually. However, in about 30 seconds after the attack, the user gets an alert in the backup management console that there's been suspicious activity. As you can see from the alert, WannaCry was able to encrypt 6 files before it was stopped by Active Protection. However, as soon as the ransomware is killed, Active Protection automatically starts recovering the encrypted files from the cache. The restored files can be viewed and edited, just as they would have been if they had not been infected. There you go. So we've successfully shown the product in action. It actually does a really great job for the end users. It makes it very easy for them to make sure that they're protected, and almost no effort for them to do it. So this is a really good feature to be introducing to your customers. So that brings us to the end. I hope that we've enlightened you a little bit about the threat of ransomware and what to do about it and how we can help you. Next steps are for you to request a demo. So we have a 30-day free trial that's available. You can contact George and he will get you started on your 30-day free trial now. By the way, our 30-day free trial, not only do you get a 30-day free trial from us, but you can at any time turn on a 30-day free trial for any of your end users, even after you've become a production reseller for us. And also, you can take your trial account and make that your production account at any time. So we want to make sure that you're doing that. If you need any further help, please go over to acronis.com and see us with some more information there. We are always working with our partners like Software One to make sure that they have all the latest data. So they will also be a great reference for you for all the information that you need to know about the solution and how you can get started with it. As I mentioned, the Active Protection product is coming out in our beta right now and will soon be a production feature for you in the next couple of weeks. So I hope that is useful for you and makes you excited about coming forward and getting started. Obviously, even if it was just backup, way better to have backup, as we showed you with our sample customer, than to not have backup. So really cool feature there. All right, so I'm going to stop now and take a couple of questions from the audience. Let's see if we have some out there. All right, so our first question here. Our first question is about cloud locations. Do you have one in Canada? I'm sorry, no, we don't have one in Canada quite yet. It's something that we're looking at, but thank you for asking. We'll keep George up to date on the process as we go forward with that. Let's see if we got another one here. All right, so the user wants to know, can you migrate data from, say, a Hyper-V out to Amazon and back again? And this is a great question. Obviously, people are using public clouds for a lot of different reasons. Oftentimes, the reasons for using a public cloud is that you want to, have a spun up, short time location to try out or test something or to build something developmentally, and then you want to bring it home. And so the answer is yes, very easily. You simply back it up to the Acronis Cloud, and then you restore into your VMware VM. It's very simple and straightforward. Makes it so easy to do. Question about Office 365. Question is, does Office 365 allow you to transition from other Exchange or Office 365 type accounts? Will it help me move between providers? Sorry, the answer is no right now. Microsoft has a very strict API. It's not a limitation of our product so much as a restriction of the Microsoft APIs. We are working with them with the hopes that we'll be able to help you migrate from other Office 365 systems or other Exchange systems or hosted Exchange systems onto our system, but that feature and functionality doesn't exist yet. I know a lot of you guys are using hosted Exchange, and so that's going to be important for you. All right, I think that is all of the questions I have in front of me. George or Rob, did you have any other questions?
No other questions. John, thank you for the excellent overview. For the attendees, we'll be sending out a link for an on-demand video, and if you get Software One's newsletter, we'll also be putting a link in there so that you can come back and check out the webinar that we've just experienced. And thanks again for everyone's attendance, and we look forward to working with you soon.
Thanks a lot, guys. We'll stay online if anybody else has any questions. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.